4th and goal for the Lions from the 4. Goff takes the snap, fakes the give, rolls right, got a man wide open. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 1, 2, 3 times today. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Welcome to week 3 of the NFL season. I am Tim Twentyman. This is the Twentyman the Huddle podcast, and I am joined by Justin Rogers. He does a great job for the Detroit Football Network. Used to be with the Detroit News, went off on his own. He also does the Lions Collective podcast, which if you haven't heard it, him and the collection of guys who cover the beat do a great job there. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
I clearly forgot I agreed to do this. I got all dressed up for this, Tim, ready to go.
Well, hey, one of the things that you do, you put a lot of time in, and I like that you do, is you do the film reviews every week. And I have to believe that when you turned that tape on Tuesday, it was a much better watch this week than when you did, week 1 coming off of Green Bay. What'd you like? What jumped out about the tape to you when you watched that performance against Chicago last week?
Yeah, I think the focus clearly is the offense, right? You go from effectively scoring 6 points. You can, throw in Tesla's touchdown at the end there, but it was a 6-point performance, in my opinion, in Green Bay to 52 against Chicago, and obviously those look very different. I loved the game plan John Morton came up with. All week they talked about getting back to who they are and establishing the run, and they built in this narrative that you believe that's what they're going to do is come out and try to pound the rock, and what they did is they almost used that to their advantage by setting up the play action. And so the very first 2 drives, first 2 plays, play action, some explosive gains off of that. Then you go later in the first half, you get the 34, 36-yard pass down to the 1, Amon-Ra St. Brown, play action. You get the first and goal touchdown to Brock Wright, play action. You get the first play of the third quarter, the 64-yard pass to Jameson Williams, play action.
There's a theme here.
It's all of these first down plays. It's the plays where you expect the team to run, where they ran kind of into a brick wall repeatedly against the Packers. They led the Bears to believe that's what they were going to do, and then they went to their quote-unquote bread and butter that Dan Campbell said they needed to get to in their play-action passing, and they did it mostly on first downs, and that's was the source of so many of their explosive plays in this game. I loved that plan of attack from Morton. It showed, I think, great foresight in how to capitalize on what the Bears do best.
And I think it showed, too, if you protect Jared Goff, he's an elite quarterback. He can stand there, read the defense, deliver the football accurately, and it was just another one of those performances with 300-plus yards, 150-plus rating. We've gotten used to some of those now over the last few years. You have to play good offensively up front in order to do that. And in order to do the play action, which you talked about too, there's added seconds to that operation when you do the play action. What did you think of the offensive line? Do you feel a little bit better about it after week 2 than you did coming out of week 1?
Yeah, you have to clean up 2 parts of that, right? You have to clean up the pass protection. You have to clean up the run blocking. I thought the pass protection took a major step forward. I don't remember exactly the number, but he got hit once, twice maybe, when they had Laporta blocking Montez Sweat on kind of the 64-yard pass to J-Mo. Like, there's very little pressure that Jared Goff faced when you have that kind of time, that kind of clean pocket, and you have those weapons. Like, it's really hard to fail in this league, and it's even harder to fail when you have the experience to know where to go with that football consistently. The run game, I think, has some work to do, and I know the final numbers were great, 177 yards, 5.9 yards per carry. But if you look at the film and you look at how those yards came to be, ton of perimeter runs. Credit to the wide receivers. Sam Laporta, major performance as a run blocker. A lot of great perimeter blocking. Very little yardage up the middle. And I think that's the area where this team needs to grow if this offense, 52 points, tough to complain, right? But if you want sustained success, you have to run the football between the tackles. That's where we need to see growth from Tate Ratledge, Graham Glasgow, Christian Mahogany, the collective together, if this offense is going to continue to be one of the elites in the NFL.
And Justin, you got to think that's going to come to with just more time on task, right? More reps, and it's not just well, they work together all training camp. Why don't they have it figured out? Game reps and practice reps are completely different. And being able to come back and study 60-plus game reps and watch that film and learn from it, a scheme you're not familiar with, a player you're not familiar with, it's very, very different. And I think that growth with Ratledge and with Mahogany and even Graham, I know he's a veteran player, but he's playing with two guys he's never really played with next to him, and that matters. And I think we're going to continue to see positive steps in that regard. You talked about the weapons, too, and one that continues continues to marvel me. And we talked to Scotty Montgomery this week, and I thought it was really interesting when he talked about kind of the subtleties in some of the routes and how when you're near the goal line, how a 3-yard route and a 5-yard route can look exactly the same, but there's just so many subtle differences, and how Amon-Ra St. Brown operates in those routes and runs those, and the chemistry that he has with Jared Goff and how they're on the same page. The back shoulder throw right before the half in the corner of the end zone is a perfect example. When you go watch the film, do you ever still marvel at Saint? I know we've seen it for so many years now, but I still find myself marveling sometimes at his little subtleties in his routes, the way he gains separation at the top of the route, how Jared will throw it before he's even turned around, just knowing where he's going to be. Do you still marvel at it?
Yeah, look, every guy on that roster is more athletic than you and me, right? Like there's just impressive physicality, athleticism with every guy on the roster, but you have a certain appreciation for the greats. I think of Calvin Johnson all the time in that conversation. Like, felt like every day we watched a practice, he did something where you're just like, you got to pick your jaw off the floor. And St. Brown in this game, there's one play that really stood out to me, and it was the first play of the second drive. It wasn't a particularly long gain, 16 yards, a good gain. At the line of scrimmage, he's nudged by Panay's brother. So he's got to avoid that first. Comes off, has an in-breaking route. He's now bracketed by the linebacker Edmonds, a very good linebacker and a very good linebacker in coverage. He beats that, and he's covered one-on-one by Jalen Johnson, a fantastic cornerback who, had some plays in that game before he left, right? And he beats that. He beats all three. Goff puts on a perfect ball, low in a way that only his receiver can get, but it's like, damn, that's a really fine bit of execution by one of the few guys I think that can accomplish that in this league. It's what makes him elite. And I got to just bring it up because I think it's hilarious. There was a play in training camp. DJ Miller, cornerback they bring in from the USFL or UFL, he broke up one of those end zone plays to Amon-Ra St. Brown when it was the second team defense versus the first team offense. Mm-hmm. And I don't care what DJ Miller does with the rest of his life. He has that because
Can you guys send me that tape? Can I just put that on the phone? My phone is a screensaver.
Yeah, he's so pristine in those little red zone routes. The quick snap off, the one he had, I thought was a perfect example. Was the one at the very end of the first half with, just not just an out route, but also coming back toward the pylon, giving even that little bit more separation. It's so difficult to stop unless you guess right. And so, credit to DJ Miller for guessing right.
Look at DJ Miller getting a shout out.
Little name drop.
I love that. All right, real quick before we move to Monday night, the pass rush, it showed a little bit more signs of life. Marcus Davenport didn't practice on Thursday. Dan Campbell said we're going to have to wait till the end of the week. He's still getting some tests there. I think either way that goes with Marcus, if he plays or he doesn't play, I think we both probably expect Al-Quadin Muhammad to have a bigger role. What did you like about him? Dan talked about just the motor that never stops. I remember the preseason play where he saved a touchdown where he came off the line of scrimmage. I think he ran 20 yards downfield, tackled somebody inside the 10-yard line on a screenplay in the preseason. I said, boy, that's one of those hustle plays. It's one of those plays that a glue piece on the roster kind of makes. Not one of your main guys, but an important depth piece that when he's asked to come in, make some plays. I thought Muhammad did that last week with a couple pressures. He had the sack. I think we both expect to see a bigger role this week with him.
Sure. I think back when they signed him, and just as I tend to do, with just a general curiosity, I know it was to the practice squad, but they needed edge depth last year, right? And so I threw on his tape from his time in Indy, and nothing stood out. I was like, okay, that's a practice squad body. I don't see it. I know he played 800 snaps. He had 7 or 6.5 sacks or whatever it was, but it wasn't particularly impressive film. And you got to take in scheme into consideration, or whatever. The stat that I really like pointing out is last year. You look at pressure rate. How often are you generating pressure per rush attempt, right? Muhammad's pressure rate was not far off from Zadarius Smith. Now he played something like 40% of the snaps, right? So how much of that can be extrapolated out over a bigger workload? That's what you always want to know. But if you look at the way Muhammad played last year, it was a lot of snaps in fewer games. And so that he can handle this bigger workload. I think it was a big mystery why he didn't play a lot more in the first game. Then you say, okay, they played 48 snaps. Maybe that makes a lot of sense. Davenport goes down. He's put in there for a bigger workload, and I thought really shined. And it's a really nice piece to have. He's an absolute bargain at his contract. And so it gives you a little bit of confidence. You still want to see depth. There's still concern about depth. Now you have to bump one person up. That means somebody else has to come up from lower. And,
Sure.
When I look at the overall pass rush picture, 4 sacks is good. It's good. When did those 4 sacks come, Tim? They all came in the second half when the score was getting away from it and you could pin your ears back. That's when, obviously, lots of teams have pass rush success. I didn't see as much in the first half, and I think that's still concerning. When you go to Baltimore, you're not going to have a 3-score lead, unlike you can have a 3-score lead in the second half. So you're going to have to find a way to affect the pocket before it gets to that point.
All right, let's talk about Baltimore, because obviously a lot of people are hoping that's maybe a Super Bowl preview of 2 elite teams in this league. Obviously a tough task going on the road in that environment. We know what happened in 2023 when they went there. They got their butts kicked. They got them handed to them. And they've all seen that film, and they've owned up to that. I think they're eager to go Monday and have a second shot at those guys. But when you look at that matchup, when you look at this game, number 1 in Justin Rogers' book, the Detroit Lions have to do what if they're going to come out with a victory Monday night?
It's going to sound strange because you think of it as a run-first team, because Derrick Henry has been added to that equation since 2023, so they're better. Like, that's the scary part about it. But I think this team has to cover. They lean so heavily on their man coverage, and I don't want to throw a guy under the bus, but Terrion Arnold has not been good enough to start this year. We saw him in camp, unbelievable camp for him.
Right.
I thought DJ Reed had an unbelievable camp. He hasn't lived up to his standards. They've been really, really good in run support. Credit there. But Arnold got worked over pretty good against Chicago, and it could have been worse. It could have been worse. If Muhammad doesn't hit Williams, he gives up another long reception. If Tyleik Williams doesn't tip that ball on 4th down, Arnold was beat there. So Baltimore doesn't have the greatest receivers in the world, but they got capable ones. I mean, obviously DeAndre Hopkins has accomplished a ton in this league. He's long in the tooth at this point. Whatever. Still good. Touchdown in weeks 1 and week 2. Zay Flowers is a good receiver. Rashad Bateman is. So I really need to see the secondary hold up a man-to-man, because a lot of tension is going to be put to that backfield, whether it's Henry or the scramble ability of Lamar Jackson. If you can't cover those guys, you're in for a long day.
And obviously step 1 is going to be stopping the run. The Browns obviously did a terrific job last week. They
still gave up 41 points.
It was their focus. They run blitz. Henry had 11 carries for 23 yards. I think they had 45 yards rushing. But what was the difference? The 41 points was Lamar Jackson threw 4 touchdown passes. And I think if you're the Lions, you obviously have to go in stopping Henry and containing Lamar in the pocket. If you get Lamar into a run-pass situation, it's really tough to beat him. You make him stay in the pocket, and if he throws 4 touchdowns like he did last week and you lose, you tip your cap, you move on to Cleveland week 4, and you say, hey, that's an MVP caliber player, and he just beat us. And to that point, too, just about how much credit he doesn't get as a passer. 10 straight games with 2 touchdown passes and a 90-plus passer rating. So he's going for 11 straight in that game Monday night. This guy can do it all, but I think you have to go into it saying, we can't let Henry get rolling. We can't let the run-pass option with Lamar be a thing. We've got to make him stay in the pocket and make him beat us throwing the football. If we do, we can deal with it.
I can't believe how much his game has evolved as he's come to the league.
It's amazing, isn't it?
And I know he won the MVP in 2019, absolutely deserved. 2023, absolutely deserved. His best season was last year. And all due respect to Josh Allen, certainly an MVP caliber season. Lamar Jackson was the MVP in the league in my book. He rushed for more yards than he had in 4 seasons. He led the league in passer rating, QBR, yards per attempt, touchdown rate. Like, Lamar Jackson was incredible last year. And Derrick Henry's existence, the threat that he possesses, only stands to make Lamar Jackson better. And if you look at those numbers, the QBR, the passer rating, the yards per attempt, they're up this year after 2 games. Like, he has transformed into this all-round player, and he has no problem beating you with his arm. I'm sure he probably would prefer it. A lot less risk to his body, right?
Special teams, I think, will be key in this one. You know, when you got 2 teams like this and you got an offense that's so capable, I think on both sides, the difference could be we see that kickoff now is a bigger part of the play. I wonder if this week 3, we see that part of it, maybe affect the game, switch the field a little bit, give you a big boost with a touchdown return. I think special teams in games like this against 2 really good teams, it's always something a little quirky, isn't it? It's special teams. It's a punt return. Takeaways are going to be huge. Who can hang on to the football? Who can generate the big one? If you're Detroit, that's got to be a must on the road. So it's just a game I'm really looking forward to. Real quick, a couple more before we finish up here. Your biggest matchup Let's
I think I
go
might have cheated.
not
Yeah.
Lamar. Let's go. Is there something else? They're not going to have probably Kyle Vinoy. We'll see about Humphrey, one of their star cornerbacks too. That's your leading sacker and probably your best cornerback. So that could be a factor. I'm just curious. What maybe besides Lamar and the obvious ones? What's a matchup that they think is going to be important for Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, I obviously highlighted the cornerbacks to Baltimore's receivers. So let's flip it to the other side. And to me, it's Jared Goff versus Kyle Hamilton, right? Like that is Lions fans are very familiar with Brian Branch and what he brings to the table and the versatility, right? It's unbelievable how he can go from pass rusher to box safety to robber to deep safety to man-on-man coverage on third down. Like it is a very, very rare and special skill set. Kyle Hamilton might be the only player in the NFL that does it better than Brian Branch. And he's what? I don't even know. 6'4", 220, like a gargantuan safety. And he can do it all. And so we talked to Scotty Montgomery today, wide receivers coach, and I was like, how important is it to ID where Hamilton's like, that's the guy you have to know where he's on the field every single play because he's capable of wrecking games from the back seven. And so, that's going to be the chess match for Jared is finding him, using that to kind of give hints on what they're thinking about doing defensively. And we know so often Jared comes to the line with two plays, right? It's picking that right play, that right read to mitigate the factor Kyle Hamilton can be.
It's going to be a chess game, I think, all the way around both sides of the ball and special teams. John Harbaugh, we always talk about Dan Campbell's team and how much importance he puts on special teams. John Harbaugh does too. I think all three phases is going to be a terrific chess match. Obviously, a game Monday night, it's kind of a statement.
Measuring stick.
Yeah, measuring stick for sure of just how good this football team is. I think they want to make up for their last road game week 1. They want to show that they can play better on the road, handle that situation a little bit better. That will be key too, but it'll be fun. We'll both be there. It should be a fun matchup.
Well, hopefully for the national television audience, they get a better game than last time in Baltimore.
Let's hope so. Justin Rogers, Tim Twentyman, thanks for joining me. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the 20 in the Huddle podcast. I am very happy to welcome in Ryan Mink. He does a great job with Ravens.com. He's the editorial director there. He also does the Lounge podcast. Ryan, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, look, it was good news in Detroit and Baltimore week 2. After both teams fell week 1, they get that kind of big win week 2. What was the most impressive thing about Baltimore's win against Cleveland for you in week 2?
Yeah, I think it was the defense playing a lot better. Certainly a rough fourth quarter in the season opener in Buffalo. They needed a bounce back effort from the defense, particularly the pass defense. They got that against Cleveland. Now it's, Joe Flacco and the Browns, so we're not talking about the Detroit Lions offense coming to town. But it was a good bounce back effort for the defense. And then particularly just played well in the fourth quarter, 21 unanswered points. It was good to see them close the game out.
It was a crazy stat line. I went to go look at that Cleveland box score, and it was like 21 rushes for 45 yards. Derrick Henry with 23 yards, but Lamar Jackson just continues to impress. I saw a great statistic, 10 straight games with at least 2 passing touchdowns and a 90-plus passer rating dating back to last year in the playoffs. Just how good is this guy? When that run game, which Baltimore is obviously so known for, they just couldn't get it going against Cleveland, but still you've got Lamar to the rescue. Just how good a football is he playing right now?
Yeah, this is the best football he's played in his career. I mean, last year he didn't win MVP, but it was his best season, really by far, one of the best seasons statistically that any quarterback has ever had. And I think he's just kind of leveled up this year. He does a great job of protecting the football. He only had 4 interceptions last year, has yet to throw one this season, knock on wood over here. But he sees the field really well. Of course, there's the broken plays that he can make something out of nothing. That's just kind of Lamar ball. And yeah, he's playing at a very high efficient level right now. I mean, currently, no quarterback in NFL history has ever had a higher quarterback rating than Lamar Jackson's right now. He surpassed Aaron Rodgers this past week, which, of course, everybody knows Lamar Jackson is the best rushing quarterback of all time. But now you're actually having the conversation statistically, is he the best passing quarterback? He's got the highest career quarterback rating. It's kind of absurd.
What is the biggest concern for Baltimore with Detroit coming in Monday night.
I mean, I think just the arsenal of weapons that Detroit has. I mean, particularly at wide receiver. Amon-Ra St. Brown coming off a 3-touchdown game. Jameson Williams. I mean, the big play threats, Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, it's just go down the list. And certainly the Ravens defense gave up almost 400 passing yards in week 1 to the Bills, and the Bills don't have nearly the wide receivers that the Lions do. And so I think that is the concern for Baltimore, particularly, Marlon Humphrey left Sunday's game with an injury. We'll see if he's able to play. Kyle Van Noy left with an injury to his hamstring. So 2 of your defensive leaders going down against a high-octane passing offense like the Lions, that's not good.
You mentioned the nearly 400 yards against Buffalo week 1, over 100 yards rushing allowed, the first 2 weeks. Any concern there a little bit? I know Cleveland, I think they averaged over better than 5.0 per rush. They obviously had to abandon it later there, but any concern there? Because we're so used to seeing Baltimore number 1, number 2, number 3 in the league stopping the run. That's been a Harbaugh thing ever since he's taken over that job. Any little bit of concern there, especially with some of the injuries that you mentioned too?
Yeah, not a ton of concern. I think the Browns kind of broke one late in that game against the Ravens second stringers. So not too concerned with the run defense. Roquan Smith is coming off a 15 tackle game, including 3 for loss. I mean, arguably his best game of his career. The Ravens did have a under the radar loss with Michael Pierce on their defensive line, former Minnesota Viking. You all probably know Michael Pierce.
Oh, we know him very well over here.
Yeah, he retired this past offseason. So the Ravens, that was a loss to the run D. But overall, I'm not too concerned with that. Now, Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, the talents that they are, you have to be concerned when they're coming to your place, because if the Lions can get that play action game going, if they're able to run the ball, play action with Goff, then you're in a tough situation. The Ravens can stop the run, put Goff in those 3rd and longs. I think they're going to have much more success.
Zay Flowers has been a guy that's really had a great start to this season. You look at their statistics, I think he's got, 14 catches, 218 yards, and a touchdown 2 games. I think their next best receiver has 4 catches. So it's really been the Zay Flowers show for that offense. Where has he taken his biggest leap in production, just leap as a player in 2025?
I wouldn't say that there's really any difference from last year. I think it's just kind of how the target share has gone down in the first 2 weeks. I mean, Zay looks like the same player to me. He is explosive. He gets the ball in space. He can make people miss. I mean, he's just kind of a human joystick kind of guy, and so I think that the Ravens do have, despite what the stats show, a wide assortment of weapons. This is the best wide receiver group I think that the Ravens have ever had. I mean, you look at Rashad Bateman as the number 2. He had a really good season last year. He is a deep threat, big play guy. He just hasn't, materialized yet. Not that he's made the most of his opportunities, but they haven't gone to him a lot yet. I mean, you look at DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, the guy's got 2 touchdowns in 2 games. Really, probably should have had 3. One got overturned and ruled down at the half-yard line against the Browns. He's making the most of his opportunities and can still make contested catches like he always has. Mark Andrews has been a very small part of the Ravens' offensive attack so far, but
that's not going to last.
Yeah, that can always change. Exactly. Led all tight ends and touchdowns last year and had a slow start to last year. And then there's the possibility that Isaiah likely returns this week from his foot injury. So, he practiced on Friday. We'll see out here this week if he keeps practicing and kind of ramps up. But there's that possibility. And so the Ravens really do, as much as it looks like the Zay Flowers show right now, they really feel it's a pick your poison offense, similar to kind of Detroit's, where they can go in any direction. I mean, you talk about the Browns game and Derrick Henry getting limited. Well, 3 of the 4 touchdowns that Lamar Jackson threw were DeAndre Hopkins and Devontae Walker. He caught 2 touchdowns. Who nobody knows about Devontae Walker. Tylan Wallace, probably a name you've never heard. So like they've gotten production kind of up and down this wide receiver unit.
Well, I usually end with this, but you've kind of alluded to it. Is maybe who's one of those guys that Lions fans might not know who could impact? Because obviously you've gotten impact from maybe some of your unheralded players. Who's maybe one guy that could be that guy that Detroit fans are like, who's that guy and why is he making all these plays on Monday Night Football?
Yeah, Devontae Walker would probably be a good one. I mean, he's a second-year wide receiver. He was a 4th-round pick a year ago. He's got speed. The guy's got just wheels. I mean, you watch him on tape, and if he gets a step on a defensive back, they're just not catching him. And so, going deep on shallow crossers, he I'm not going to put him in the same category as Jameson Williams yet, but shades of a similar player. And so I think that he's somebody to watch out for. And then Justice Hill, the Ravens' backup running back, is a very good player that a lot of people don't know. And especially on third downs, Justice Hill is often the go-to guy.
What is the biggest matchup from your perspective sitting there in Baltimore midweek? Where do you see this as like this is the area where Baltimore's got to control this game Monday night?
I think it's Amon-Ra St. Brown and, how they match up against him, especially if Marlon Humphrey isn't able to play, and we'll see. It's kind of a groin injury for him, but he's also a pretty darn tough dude. Like, he's going to play if he can play. But, is he 100% if he does play? And can they keep up with Amon-Ra St. Brown and, all the ways that they use him? I think that's probably the matchup to watch.
One guy that's played pretty well, obviously last week, but really the first 2 weeks is Brian Branch, the talented safety here. And I wanted to ask you this question because obviously you've been around Kyle Hamilton for a long time, and just the ability of those safeties to come down and play in the box, to cover light corners, to play the nickel. Just how valuable has Kyle been to that defense? Because he's a guy that I compare Brian Branch to. To me, it's kind of Kyle Hamilton, Ed Reed, and Brian Branch are kind of that versatile guys that can do a lot of different things. Just the benefit of watching Kyle over years, because Detroit fans are seeing it with Brian Branch now, and just how fun and how big of an impact a guy like that can have on defense.
Yeah, really massive. I mean, I think two players that are different in stature, certainly Brian Branch and Kyle Hamilton. Again, Kyle Hamilton's like a 6'4" monster. Brian Branch is built differently, but they use him in similar ways. Kyle Hamilton plays all over the Ravens defense at nickel, obviously deep safety, free safety, in the box safety. He plays some linebacker at times. He can be kind of a dime linebacker. And so, they use him everywhere. And that is hugely valuable. I mean, I think just keeping the offense guessing as to where your safeties are lining up really kind of keeps them, they have a tougher time locking in on what's going on defensively. And so, and obviously just the ability to kind of go matchups, it's almost the game turns into a game of basketball at times, and it's a matchups game. You talk about a guy like Sam Laporta, does Kyle Hamilton sometimes match up against him and try to eliminate that threat? So yeah, very valuable to have a safety that can play multiple positions.
Well, so many weapons are going to be featured Monday night in Baltimore, both offensively and defensively. Dan Campbell is looking forward to this game. This could potentially be a Super Bowl matchup just with the way these two teams are built. Should be a fun one in front of a national audience on Monday night. I can't wait for it. Ryan, thanks so much for taking the time, and I'll make sure I come by and say hello in Baltimore on Monday night.
All right, thanks, Tim. Yeah, I hope we meet in the Super Bowl. That'd be awesome.
Well, that would be fun. We'll have to do one of these again in February for sure.
Sounds good. Sign me up.